Hello, good morning. I'm Peter Aline. I'm sitting in for Joyanne this morning, and Joy, we certainly hope that all's well. Welcome to Face It and Fix It. Hope you had a good weekend. We welcome our viewers from across the world and right here at home to Face It and Fix It on CBC TV 8, Facebook and YouTube. This is the point where Joyanne usually shares some of her personal observations, and one of my observations over the weekend as I was preparing this program to share with you all with CARLA Daniel, who's going to be in a little later on, is the vulnerability of our fauna. You know, there's flora, the flowers and so on, and then the animal part of us, Barbados, as an environment, and the vulnerability of some of our sea creatures and land creatures, and how I think we take them for granted. We see them, some people are scared of them, especially when it comes to the sea creatures, but you know, going back to those who have grown up in the faith, we are put here as guardians of those creatures, and we have to ask ourselves, what kind of guardianship of this earth are we really and truthfully exhibiting? How do we look after the least among us? When you consider the garbage that's in our oceans. We go to the beach on weekends and we think that, oh, it's okay, you know, mango skins are going to disintegrate and become a part of the ecosystem again, yeah? But what about the plastic bags that you brought those mangoes in? They end up in the ocean. They end up in the throats of some of those sea creatures. We're going to talk about that a little later on, actually, the state of the turtle population here in Barbados. But do you ever really and truthfully give a thought when you hear of the things, the items that they find in on our beaches and in our gullies? It's ridiculous. Why would we be finding baby nappies at a beach? If you're taking your baby there, can't you take your garbage along with you back home or place it in the garbage bins, provided there are quite a few that are located along the beach? Come on, we can do a whole lot better. And we're going to be talking today with Senator John King, who is the Special Advisor in Cultural Heritage to the Prime Minister's Office, and Dr. Cleve Scott, who's a researcher at the UWI in the Oral History Project. He's also a member of the Caribbean Heritage Network, and he's a Calypso Aficionado. So why are we going to be chatting with them? Well, to highlight the challenges of bringing heritage and culture to the forefront and to look at solutions. And what I spoke about is all part of our heritage, the oceans that we've been gifted and blessed with, and how we look after them is all part of our culture, and a part of our culture, really and truthfully, that needs to change. We also, as I said, will be chatting with Field Director of the Barbados Sea Turtle Project. That's right, CARLA Daniel. She'll be joining us in our second hour, because we'll be looking at one of the majestic creatures of the sea, who not only makes Barbados its nursery, but is also one of the attractions in our tourism industry. That's right, talking about the turtle. And they are under threat and they're in danger. And we're going to find out how we can help. So remember, you can contact us and participate by calling 228-5562 or 228-5563. Or you can WhatsApp us, message only, on 228-5562 when you WhatsApp us. or you can post your questions or your concerns on our Facebook page at CBC Barbados. Thank you for sharing your Monday morning with me. We'll be back with Senator John King and Dr. Cleve Scott after the break. This morning we're talking heritage and culture. What exactly is heritage and culture? We hear the words and we hear them bandied about often, but what exactly are they? Now, heritage, I understand, is, that tangible and intangible assets that we have, inherited from past generations, tangible like buildings, like artifacts and that sort of thing. And then we talk about the intangible, which are then like our traditions, our folklore, our language. And culture also is a part of that as well, because inherent in that is our culture, which is like our food, how we dance, how we worship, our faith. I think that's how I see it, but how do these gentlemen see it? And how can we be more interested and involved in not only grasping what our culture is, but to respect it and to value it, and then to help move it forward for future generations? Let's chat with Senator John King, who is the Special Advisor of Cultural Heritage in the Prime Minister's Office, and Dr. Cleve Scott, who we all know at Cropover as a former Calypso judge and also one of our analysts here on CBC TV8. But he's also a researcher with the UWI's Oral History Project and a member of the Caribbean Heritage Network. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Happy Monday.
Thank you.
Good to see you both. Did you get an opportunity to hear my definition of heritage? I'd like to find out from you, how do you see heritage? So Senator King, perhaps we'll start with you.
Thank you, Peter. I think you hit the nail right on the head. But for me, one of the things that we probably would need to add is basically what are the meanings and what are the kind of behaviors that we draw from the very things that you talk. It's a full range of inherited traditions, monuments, objects, culture, yes. But what is it that we draw from it, that we put into our everyday life? And you made the point when you spoke about how do we value it? How do we use it to enhance ourselves? How do we preserve and these sorts of things? And I think it is important that at this juncture of our development, when we continue in the Caribbean, not only in Barbados, to shape our identity, who we are for ourselves and for the rest of the world, it's important that we draw on these things. But again, the question needs to be asked, what is it that we draw from these things that are positive in terms of humanity?
Yes, Dr. Scott?
And viewers and listeners elsewhere. Uh, Both Senator King and yourself, Peter, have offered a very interesting definitions of heritage. In fact, both are conveyors of the heritage of Barbados and the wider Caribbean. Yourself with language and mannerisms in your group and your theater, and Senator King in his Calypso. Now, many persons perhaps won't appreciate that heritage exists all around them. What you have inherited from your parents, your grandparents are part of your heritage. As you mentioned, intangible, the way you express yourself, and that could be your mannerisms. If we think across the region, Belize, the Garifuna heritage, intangible heritage is recognized and inscribed by UNESCO. And you know the Garifuna originated in St. Vincent. Here in Barbados, the World Heritage Site, Bridgetown, is indeed a very important part of both the tangible and heritage tangible. The various words that we use that go way back to the origin of the Barbadian civilization, words like Wana and so on. So heritage is all around us, Peter.
But why then, for some people, is it so difficult to grasp the importance of acknowledging it and respecting it and recognizing that it does exist, and not ask the question, well, what is all this thing about heritage, and why we got to spend, when really and truthfully everybody's struggling, and we got to pay more attention to XYZ. Why is it so difficult? Other cultures seem to grasp the importance of their heritage far more than some of us seem to do.
Well, Caribbean and Barbados is no different, has come from what some people call the fiery cauldron. Of course, Barbados, as we know it, 1627, and almost 400 years or so will be 400 years. And obviously, if we add the Indian period, we'll go back a couple thousand years. Now, within that history, there are things that people want to forget. For example, slavery. And we must congratulate the current government for its recognition of the importance of slavery and keeping slavery in the consciousness. So that within the context of colonization, there are some things which we appreciate and some things which we do not appreciate. So, for example, the museum that is going to be built in the Newton era and so on, and Senator King can speak more to this than I can, of course, are important elements of getting to come to grips with the negative and the positive. Another challenge in Barbados, as we know, is this whole issue of Nelson. So Nelson has been taken down, and we are told that Nelson is going to be relocated elsewhere. And some people want to throw Nelson, but when you see your heritage, you have to place your heritage within the context of where you think it should be located, but certainly not in the sea.
Yeah, Senator King, you were about to answer, I think, as well.
No, I wanted to concur with what Cleve has just said, but I also want to raise the whole idea of the educational system. This one may tackle people in a funny way, but one of the things that we seem not to pay close attention to is that our education system, from its very inception, was geared towards us being as British as humanly possible. And so therefore, there's a reason why Barbados would have been called Little England. And in that, those aspects of, let's say, those people who came from Africa, those people who came from Ireland and Scotland, who were not of high standings in British society, those persons who would have arrived in Barbados from East India, their customs and their traditions, even from a religious standpoint, Muslims and Jews and other people who made Barbados their homes, this has never been embraced as being part and parcel of our heritage, are even part and parcel of our culture. It has always been as a stand alone, just by the way of thing, and all the things that we look at, even when we talk about British Historic Bridgetown and its garrison, we are talking about British architecture, British influence. No one talks or no one even speaks about, let's say, what we call the Chatham House and the architecture that came with that, and the whole idea of it being movable. These are all parts and parts of our inheritance also.
Yes.
And so we have to, we now have to be able to begin the process, as Dr. Scott mentioned, of reinterpreting what it is that we as Barbadians consider to be our heritage. And I think this is the process that has started. And it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. But I think from every quarter of the society, people have to be open to understanding that all of these things are part of it. And as Cleve also said, when we had the situation with the removal of Nelson, like it or not, all aspects of your heritage are not going to be comfortable for everyone.
Quite.
But they nonetheless are part of that story of the heritage.
Right. I'd like to remind our viewers that you can participate. You know, your views are welcome on this. It's not just the three of us, because, you know, everybody has an opinion. So you can give us a call at 228-5562, 228-5563 if this particular conversation is resonating. Because one of the things that is mentioned is with, you know, taking it back to the school. And that's where it begins, because a lot of, I think, the older generation has already been, I don't want to say groomed, but has been living within a certain particular experience from a particular environment. And so maybe a little more hesitant to change and to get the idea of the importance of our heritage, perhaps should start with the young. And perhaps we've not been doing that enough. Yes, we've been looking now at Black History Month with February, but that's been appropriated from America, you know, where we are looking at, you know, blacks and so on. But perhaps we need to take a look at what happened here, what happened within our own society. And yes, black, white, or Indian, because we are a melting pot. Either of you can, you know, you can just, it wasn't a question. You all can disagree or agree if you like.
I completely agree with you, Peter. And I continue to try to get people to understand that we are the sum total of everyone on this island. It's not just one particular set of people. And we are influenced by different things. So, for instance, I believe Dr. Scott will be able to even talk about this when you talk about the language. The language is not just standard English. If you think about all the different persons who would have been here and the way the words are constructed and different things like that, then yes, you have a mixture of things that came from Africa, but there are also things that came from Ireland and Scotland, which are very much a part and parcel of words that we use. Some of them not so good, but there are peculiar things that make up who we are as Barbadians. I think one of the challenges as we go through this conversation is to get everyone to buy into the concept that it is more than just the British aspects of our things. It's more than just the African aspects of our things, but it is all the things that we've inherited from all of the different cultures, like you said, in that melting pot.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our chat with Dr. Cleve Scott and Senator John King. And I mentioned a word earlier when I said appropriation, and I'd like to go a little bit more on that and find out their thoughts on cultural appropriation. We talk about it in terms of other societies, you know, copying intentionally or unintentionally the habits and so on of others. thinking of cornrows and that sort of thing. But, you know, we do it too when it comes to language and the ways younger persons may dress and so on. We're going to take a look at that when we come back. We're talking culture and we're talking heritage this morning. Not specifically to perhaps an event, but this is Heritage Month and we're on the eve of crop over, which is one of the biggest, I think, exponents of our culture. We usually think more of the musical line, but you know, it's our art, it's our food, it's our dance, it's us as a people. And so my question is our identity under threat? When I use the word appropriation before, I look at the new phrase that's being bandied about, cultural appropriation. And where are we as a society in terms of perhaps with the impact of American culture on our society, our people? Dr. Scott, you want to take that first?
Yes, that's an issue that discussed almost every year, especially when it comes around to crop over and Calypso. I always remind people that culture never static, it's always evolving. The late Cartwright, he used the term creolization to define this the mixing. Some scholars talk about hybridity, you know, different together. So as King mentioned a little earlier, the Barbadian culture is a mixture of European, Amerindian, and the new people who have come. So that, for example, some would not even recognize the Jewish input into Barbadian culture. If you go to Spice Town, there's the site of the old synagogue in Bridgetown. So that the culture is always evolving. And obviously in the 21st century, with the spread of the influence of the United States and other superpowers, quote unquote, you'll have this constant mix. So if you take music as an example, you have the presence of trap music, of rap music, of pop, and so on. And we see that Barbados has been able to make its own input, because you must recognize that Rihanna and Trina had, in a kind of a way, start to Barbadianize, let's use that word, pop music internationally, in both speech and our language and so on. So that cultures both ways, both ways, left and right. Okay?
Yes. When it comes to the oral history project, though, at the UWI, Dr. Scott, okay, that was set up sometime in the 70s. How is that done? What sort of research have you all been doing, and what have you all been finding out when it comes to oral history? Because I think that's one thing that we have lost a big chunk of our history on.
Yeah, this project was set up in the 1970s, led by people like of Sir Woodville Marshall, the late Tony Phillips, and so on. And since then, some of the personalities were interviewed. People like Sir Sidney Martin, Sir Theodore Brand, and so on. So we have a good idea, in the own words, of the developed Barbados in the period just before independence and immediately after independence. In fact, one of the things that strikes me about these audio recordings, you hear this in the background telephones and the use of certain words that you don't hear popular in Barbados anymore. But then we have continued to do interviews. We have interviewed returning migrants, people who went to Britain and come back. We have interviewed artisans, blacksmiths, and so on. As you raise the issue of oral history, Senator King would tell you that the NCF, the National Foundation, has been doing a lot of work, and I'm also associated with a current project. It's called the Landship Site of Memory Project, where I, as a lead researcher, have with many persons about the memories of the landship, and I'm so sure you will hear more from the Culture Fund in the not to the future as they mark these sites where the docks were located. The 9th century, from around 1863, the date that most people use as the start of the land.
Right. Okay. Senator King, sorry, I wanted to get that in there because I know how important oral history has been to you as a subject, but I kind of jumped the gun a bit because we were talking about the impact of other cultures on our own, and I wonder your thoughts on this.
I think Dr. Scott clearly made the point that cultures impact on each other all across the world. Let's look, for instance, and Cleve can bear me out here. In the 1970s, the Rastafari movement with music, with its use of marijuana, locks, all of these things started to have a huge impact on the rest of the world. Then you had the advent again with the music, with Bob Marley and reggae and all of these things. And even up to today, that is still a heavy influence on people all over the world. It is interesting that at the time when it was exploding, so to speak, that we ourselves in the Caribbean were doing almost everything at that particular point in time to crush it or to subdue it. And that is why you would always hear me go back to the whole idea of the deconstructing and reconstructing of the educational system, not just in terms of academics, but in terms of how we view ourselves as Caribbean people and how we value the things that we create, the things that we put out there into the rest of the world. And I think that is a part and parcel of the quote-unquote culture that we need to seriously pay a lot of attention to, because a lot of the things that we take for granted, other people in other parts of the world see the value in these things and make good use of it, even in an economic way, or something just in a social way, or in a health way. So for me, I have seen in my own life the heavy influence of North American culture on Barbados. In some instances, what I have also seen is I guess you can put it, the total buy-in of some sections of our society of everything that comes out of our neighbors, the good, bad, and the indifferent. And for me, that in itself creates a problem, because when you cannot differentiate between what is good for you or who you are as a person, you have problems. When Cleve spoke about the uproar and furore that we had in Barbados over the removal of the Nelson statue and the calls for throwing it into the sea, people carrying on and all these things, that is a clear example of you not fully understanding who you are, what your problems are, and how you address your problem. For me, that is a clear indication that something else is imprinted on you, and you just fly off with it. Not that the problem is not real; the problem is real, but how you address it, how you deal with it, for me, is more important because that speaks volumes about who you are as a people.
All right. Yeah, I kept on like quietly saying, but we are like if not the oldest, the second oldest statue of him. So perhaps, we also need to bear that in mind and place it elsewhere, but certainly not dump it. The reason why I was asking about the whole oral history aspect, though, was because I was formulating in my mind, in this segment with the impact of American culture and so on, and the impact of social media. And people do all sorts of challenges. They've got the TikTok and Instagram and so on. Why don't you now with your phone, well, let me pick up the other one because you'll see it better. With your phone, record your grandmother, record your grandfather, record your great grandmother, and have them talk about their lives. That's the challenge to you. Ask them questions about what was it like growing up in Barbados back in the day. What was their food like? What was their, romancing like? What was their dancing like? What did their parents teach them? What was church? What did you wear to church back then? How did you go? All of that. And then you have a piece of your own family's history, which then can perhaps be donated and handed in. And so it's a thought, because we've lost so much in terms of the thoughts and actions and habits and so on of our older generation, unfortunately. But we have the technology. Let's still try to see if we could grab it while we can, because that's all part of our heritage.
Yeah, with the intangible. But Barbados has done a magnificent job in preserving its tangible heritage.
Exactly.
But from my observation, for the average Barbadian, this tangible heritage is not for them. They consider it as tourist heritage. Mm-hmm. If you ask how many persons have gone to Morgan, the mill, Morgan Lewis Mill, how many have gone to a plantation house, a great house? I shop in Speightstown, and people pass Arlington House Street. They don't even peep to see what exists inside of there. You have the museum. Ask the museum how many locals come annually. So my call to Barbadians is that appreciate the tangible heritage. Is not only for tourists, it is yours, and you must partake and appreciate it. Right? Take your children on a weekend to see the mill. Take them to the museum. Take them to the garrison. Let them look at the architecture. Take them to see a old slave hut. Take them to Rock Hall and so on.
Yeah, that's a very, very good idea. See Barbados through the eyes of those who may come to visit and learn it and love it all over again. Senator King?
Totally agreed with Dr. Scott, 100%. I would even go a little bit further. Language. We've lost a lot of the expressions that we would have grown up with, Peter. When you think of someone like myself, who was actually born in England and then came here.
Oh yeah.
Fascinated by, language.
Yes.
So I met old people tell you something like about a woman. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? To learn all of these things, and preservation of them for me is key, because it also gives you a blueprint of your evolution, or as Cleve said earlier, your culture, and it's not stagnant. It's very dynamic. It keeps shifting and keeps moving. But once you understand where it came from and how it evolves, it all gives you that sense of identity, that sense of contribution to its evolution, and it gives you that sense of who you are as a person, but also a member of this group that we call Barbadians. And you made the point about tourists coming to Barbados and enjoying built heritage, natural heritage, and probably the intangible heritage in some ways. But we have to first recognize, and I'll keep saying this until I can't say it anymore. These things have value. The question is, what value do we as a people place on them? So it's fine for us to do it from the government section up down, but there has to be something very encouraged, as you did earlier, Peter, encourage the young people to think of the older people and listen to those stories of what life was like in the past. They get a better understanding of why the older people think the way they do, and then they can appreciate that there's a gap between as we evolve and where they are. And once you understand that, it builds better relationships, it builds better understanding, and those are the things that contribute to the building of a better society as a whole. And I think that is where we really need to do a lot of work.
It's true. And utilize the tools of the youth, to get it done. And perhaps, we'll start seeing those images out there. 30-second sound bites. Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Cleve.
Peter, I'd like to come in here and tell the Bajans that there's a word that the only place in the world uses it like that, and that's federation, the only place. And if you're looking for something for your children for Christmas or their birthday, this is the best gift you could ever find.
Dictionary of Caribbean English usage, quite right.
And you go through this, so you're going to find all the Barbadian words in it that are unique to Barbadian, your intangible heritage. Thank you very much, Peter.
You are welcome. Well, we're still going to continue the conversation because when we come back, I want to take a look at solutions. We just mentioned a few. And then perhaps also take a look at some of the things which are coming up that, you can encourage families to take advantage of and to go, and where they will see some of the indigenous things of the island and perhaps acquire some as well. We'll do that when we come back. If you've just joined us, I'm Peter, sitting in for Joyanne this morning, and today on Face It and Fix It, we're facing the idea that our heritage and culture might be under threat, and finding ways and solutions that we can fix them. And we have with us today Senator John King, who's a special advisor for cultural heritage with the Prime Minister's office, and Dr. Cleve Scott. We all know him as one of our Calypso analyst team here during Cropover, former Calypso judge and Calypso aficionado. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. What do you both see as some of the challenges or the causes for concern And how do you think that we can overcome them and perhaps push forward to create some solutions? And either of you can go first.
Okay, I'll go first this time. John, Senator King spoke earlier about education, and he said education not within the formal academic sense. I would say if parents begin to simply keep simple things like this. Well, Peter, you'll recognize this. I don't know if Senator King would remember this.
I do.
This,
My goodness.
And this is for the viewers. And okay, simple things like this, or like this,
Yeah.
right?
Right, mortar and pestle.
Yeah. So simple things like these. And when your children grow up and see these things around the house, at the back of me, you see on the television and people wonder what he's doing with that. That is my heritage.
Right.
Because in front of me, there's a 50-inch flat screen, which I'm following. But that is important. I'm not going to throw that in the garbage.
Yes.
Because when my sons, when they have their children and so on, my grandchildren, they should have an idea what a traditional TV was in their father's time. So simple things like these, holding on to your tangible heritage. And similarly, as you mentioned, telling stories. Some viewers would know that I began school here at St. Bartholomew's in Parish Land, Christ Church, in the early 70s. Being a little boy here in the late 60s with my father, who worked at the police training center. And he would tell me stories of the 60s about Barbados. So I have a very good knowledge of what it was to be here, although the most I could remember is going to school on a bicycle with the headmaster. So simple things like that.
Yes.
Simple things like that.
Yeah. I had the director in my ear saying, we used to get evaporated milk in a glass bottle. Yeah. And some in our age group would tell you that some of these sodas that y'all drinking now taste better from the glass bottle than they ever do from the plastic or the can. Nothing beats Coke. Whoops, I'm advertising, but nothing beats that dark soft drink in a glass container. But you are quite right. Even the days of the donkey cart, you don't see that much anymore. Yeah. As I'm reminded, gas prices are going up, so you might be seeing that more than ever now. So it might be coming back. But, that's one of the memories of my childhood, and those things could carry lots of stuff as you move from pillar to post, so, yeah. Please, Senator King.
Yeah, I think Cleve has really put forward what I was fully support is having instruments such as mortar pestles, graters, the old-time graters, jigging boards, all of these things, so that younger people can understand what life was like and what were the things that we used back then. At present, there is a exhibition in the foyer of the Division of Culture, and a week ago we had some young people in there, and they were fascinated by a rediffusion, old-time radio. They could not even believe that the telephone, which had the
dial,
thing where you put your finger on the dial,
yes, yeah.
They could not believe that was a telephone. So it just how disconnected they are from these things that form part and parcel of our heritage or the story of Barbados.
Where we came from.
But I think one of the other things that we need to encourage is families to get back together. For me, as a young person growing up in Barbados, this was the most impactful thing of my life. Coming into a situation where every person within my village was not necessarily your blood relation, but they had the ability to help to raise you. And so therefore there was a certain amount of respect that was given the person. I'll give a classic example. When we were growing up, Peter, if your parents and somebody else had noise, as people would say, you could not dare, as a child, to pretend that you are going to pass that person and not speak.
And not speak. That's
not
right. That's right.
People, we have thrown these things out through the window as being not fashionable, or or we've seen how people behave in other parts of the world and gravitated towards those things, those ways of doing things. And I'm saying that in throwing out certain things, it is like throwing out the baby with the bathwater, and we are seeing the effects of it in the society today. But the problem is, a lot of our people refuse to want to identify with certain aspects of our past. I'll give you another classic example. When I came here, my aunts, my uncles, my grandmother, everybody, they lived in close proximity, very close proximity, so that you knew all of your cousins, all the little babies that were coming along, and everybody would chip in and help and do whatever. Families today, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, I'm just saying that families today take on a complete different meaning and a complete different role. So that you can see, as people become more, quote unquote, affluent, they move as far away from where they started as humanly possible, and oftentimes never even return in some instances. I'm saying that if the older people in our society, those grandparents and those, do not have that same connection with their grandchildren and great-grands and all, these are things that give you the opportunity to pass on the information that Cleve was talking about, to pass on language, to pass on history, to pass on values. These are important parts of the culture that create who you are. And so, for me, is how do we, as, yes, the Division of Culture, NCF, University of the West Indies, the Ministry of Education, how do we all come together to begin to put programs that are in primary schools, secondary schools, university, the communities, and whatever else, to get people to begin to reconnect. Because in that reconnecting, the transfer of knowledge, the transfer of values happens.
Yes.
And so at the community level, we've got to find a way to bring the communities together again, because that is the basis upon which Barbados is built.
Right. And that's how one learned at your grandmother's hip and your mum's side, how to cook the foods which are indigenous to the country. And you're right. But now there's technology. I mean, hello, FaceTime and Zoom and all of that. We're not that far apart. Even the extended family now overseas, you can have a chat, a WhatsApp chat, and you can so on, to bring families. I think that's one of the things that the pandemic did in a way, was to bring families closer together once again. My worry is that now we're moving back outside, that we're going to lose that once again, and that would be unfortunate. I'm looking at culture. We looked a lot at the heritage, but the cultural part, as we go in to crop over with, I guess it's hybrid events. Cleve used that word a little earlier, but with the hybrid competitions and events and so on, what are your thoughts on the adjusted crop over for 2022? Cleve, I can start with you first, and but y'all don't want to go for it. But
yes, yeah. No, I'll go
Cleve.
first. No problem.
Go, Cleve.
No, first and foremost, you have to congratulate the government and the National Cultural Foundation and everyone for being able to put on a crop over. It is not easy within these challenging times. And I had the opportunity to engineer the opening night for Alsastant, and there was a lovely crowd, and Senator King put on a magnificent performance. Never mind, he only gave us one song. But we have to start somewhere, and hopefully by next year we will be able to go back full force. But congratulations for being able to put on a crop over. And we do know that people will be coming in for crop over. I personally have had several inquiries about different events, and there's going to be a significant amount of people coming in for crop over. So congratulations to all right around.
Okay. Senator King?
I agree with Dr. Scott. Kudos to all of the players, Calypsonians, the band leaders, everybody, because it is a unique festival. It is also a unique opportunity for us to express ourselves, and as you said, Peter, to connect. And the use of the technology must never be ruled out, because when we have these wonderful tools at our disposal, we must make the best use of them. And as you made the point earlier, this gives our older people who might not be able to get out to a lot of the events. Once you're streaming, they can stay at home, and a younger person who is more in tune with using the thing can be there with them and help them to watch a lot of these events that they might not be able to get out to. And under the circumstances, still dealing with COVID-19 and all of its effects, for me, it is brilliant that we can actually do it in the way that we are doing it. And as you also mentioned, it also reaches out to the diaspora. Mm-hmm. And for those persons now, since the name of Barbados is becoming as international as any other name or any other place in the world, it is important that we use this opportunity to showcase who we are to the rest of the world, not only to ourselves, but to the rest of the world. And the technology gives us the opportunity to do that. So the things that we can stream, and for me, it is a good time. I mean, the world will never be the same. I'm not fooling myself. It will never be the same. But I think we have to adapt and to use everything at our disposal to make our presence felt on the world stage.
I ask you this now because you are talking about technology and so on. Where are we in terms of our service providers who, in terms of bandwidth, in terms of the quality of the streaming and that sort of thing, are they willing to work with everyone and improve the quality, man? I am sorry. It is not the best when you consider when you get from outside. We look at the quality that we have in our various Zoom conversations, even this morning with Cleve. We've got to have access to better internet. Full stop. I said it, yes.
I totally agree with you, Peter. But these are problems that you will face when you are not the persons who are building the technology, and you are not the persons who are actually doing the stuff. So I'm hoping.
We keep our fingers crossed. Will there be streaming though? Will tents get a little ease if they want to have pay-per-view and so on? Is that going to be part of the packages offered? I hope so, for just the reasons you mentioned.
I believe that a lot of the tents are looking at those options for streaming and doing things like that, and there are incentives for them to do that.
Okay. I certainly hope that that's the case. Have you all heard any of the music yet? Have you, Cleve?
Obviously, I was the engineer for All Stars on Saturday night, and some real good calypsos inside there. I heard stuff as well from Gladiators and the Big Show, and from House of Soca. So obviously, I encourage all listeners and viewers to come out and support all of the tents. No calypso for 2 years, and as I said to the musicians on Saturday night, you owe me 2 years of music. So I suspect when you go to the tent, you'll get 2 years plus one.
Okay, what are some of the important events coming up, Senator King, if you have it to hand right now?
Yeah, I do. Actually, for Heritage Month, today, you can actually go online and meet a heritage entrepreneur. Now, that is something that the Division of Culture has been doing online. You can go to their Facebook page. You can go to BTMI's page also, and you will meet an entrepreneur. And the reason for this particular event is that in the heritage sector, from an economic standpoint, there are lots of opportunities for people to do things. And people think about it only in terms of tourism. But I always say to people, first tourist or your first person who should learn about heritage is a Barbadian. And so therefore, they can go there and they can meet people, their profiles on them, they tell you about what they do, when they started, how you can contact them to even go on tours of Bridgetown and other parts of the island and different things like that. So that's a fantastic one. And then on Wednesday, there's an online discussion that looks at St. James's Parish Church. It gives you a little bit of the history of it. The presenter there will be Astrid Bab, and the historian is Mr. Morris Greenwich. So that's on Wednesday. And also the National Library Service has a fantastic discussion on Black business in Barbados. And I think that in itself will be a huge eye-opener. Peter, coming along, we would have heard that Robert Street was the center of Black business growing up historically. And these are things that I don't know how many people outside of our generation know about what Nelson Street and Robert Street meant to Black businesses as they evolved. And so this is going to be very important, because as we seek to get more people to become entrepreneurs, I think the stories of our business people, especially those of African descent, coming out of slavery and coming out of colonialism, is going to be an important catalyst for giving people information that they need if they're interested in going into these types of endeavors.
Right.
And then also on Wednesday, with UWI in association with the Embassy of the Argentinian Embassy, there's also going to be a lecture series, which is called The Road to the Republic. And this week, a panel discussion again will be on Friends of Ours Satellite Southern.
Nice.
And that talks about the diplomacy between Barbados, Venezuela, and the rest of the Caribbean. So that's also going to be good. And then on Thursday, there's Heritage and Sustainable Development. That is also a discussion. A panel of students from the UWI will be there. I will be the host of that particular one online. And on Friday, we call it Flashback Fridays, and that's online photos, which will be a montage of different things in Barbados. So you will see buildings and different things from our national register, but you'll also see plots and all sorts of stuff. So most of it is going to be online. And as you said, we're using the technology to reach people. So it's
very, very important. And you can access it from anywhere at any time. What is the address for culture that, everyone can go on, see where they can access these various events?
So on Facebook, you can go to Facebook/Creative Economy Culture Heritage, or you can tag Culture Barbados.
Okay, excellent. So see, it's on Facebook. Most of you of a certain age are on Facebook, and so go and access the various events that are there. And it's interesting that not only are you looking at the building, the St. James Parish Church, but then you're also looking at business, which is too a very important part of our heritage, very important part of our development. Gentlemen, thank you so, so much. Is there anything you feel we've left out that we still need to remind everyone of, or do you think that you're happy that we've pretty much covered it this Monday morning?
Well, my part and shot will be to remind viewers that Barbados and Barbadian has influenced the soca with the word walk. The word walk now has replaced wine in soca. And that will be my part.
Really? Okay. That's good to know. The word walk is a singular word. It ain't come with up.
Up, in, everything. Yeah, ask Mark Fingal. Ask Mark Fingal. He's a specialist on this subject.
Very well. Thank you, Cleve. And John?
And for me, I just like to encourage everyone in the society to be a part of Heritage Month. You don't necessarily have to come to all of the events or to all the things online, but speak to some of the older people. And this is where my heart is at, is getting us to reconnect with those older people in the society, getting that knowledge. You know, one of the things I miss would have been my grandmother's cassava hats.
Wow.
And you will ask yourself, when last have you seen anything like that?
Not
and because we also
time.
have 100 indigenous people living on this island, I think we must take time out to meet and greet and get to know our brothers and sisters and understand things about food. Like, for instance, you talk about putting in sauce, but how different is that from haggis that comes from Scotland and Ireland and these other places? And what are the influences that make up who we are? And for me, we use this time to connect. It's all about connecting.
Thank you so much, Senator King. Senator John King, who of course is the Special Advisor on Cultural Heritage in the Prime Minister's Office, and Dr. Cleve Scott, researcher at the UWI in their Oral History Project, member of the Caribbean Heritage Network, and also a well-known Calypso aficionado. Thank you, gentlemen. The discussion will continue, I am sure, because it has to. But thank you for joining us today. When we come back, we take another look and another aspect of our heritage, part of our environment, a very important part, with Carla Daniel when we come back. We've been looking at our heritage and our culture all morning right here on Face It and Fix It. And yeah, there are some things that we need to tackle, some things that we need to face and definitely need to fix. And one of the things that is, I think, a through theme is us. The importance is the individual and then the importance of the family. And so I hope that we've given you some, pause for thought, and that you yourself can come up with your own solutions as to how you can deal with heritage within your own families. And today we want to take a look at one of the majestic creatures of the sea, which not only makes Barbados its nursery because it comes to shore every year to lay its eggs and is one of our main tourist attractions, but it's also as important to our culture as our food is. But how well do we look after this creature of the sea? The one who we have on our tourist posters about swimming and with them and so on. How kind are we to them? Do we think about them at all? Well, let's find out from Field Director with the Barbados Sea Turtle Project, just how is the turtle doing within the Barbadian environment? Let's chat with Carla Daniel. Good morning, Carla.
Good morning.
Long time no see. How are you?
Well, I am doing well. Thank you very much for the opportunity to have a discussion about sea turtles this morning.
You're welcome. You are, I think, in the season right now. We're in the season now for them to be nesting, or have we passed it?
We are just at the beginning of the nesting season.
In the beginning,
officially on the 1st.
Good,
yeah.
So we're on time. We're on time. So tell us about the sea turtle. First of all, for those who might not be aware, I think there are 3 types of turtles which nest in Barbados. Can you tell us about them? And we might have some pictures, I think. Yes.
So just to start, there's 7 species of sea turtles worldwide. Out of those 7, you can find 6 species in the wider Caribbean region. And then from those 6, there are 3 that we can find on or around our island. So those 3, we have the hawksbill turtle, which you would commonly see coming up between June and November to nest on our beaches. We have the green turtle.
And this is the leatherback.
Well, this is the leatherback. We have the green turtle, and then we have the leatherback, which nests primarily on the eastern side of the island. The green turtles are those juveniles, the small ones that you will see when you go out on a catamaran, or sometimes if you're on a beach and you look out to sea and you see a little head popping up to breathe. Those are juvenile green turtles. We do have a few green turtles nesting, not many, but they're primarily on the southeastern side of the island.
Okay, and then the one with the yellowish looking shell we saw just now was the hawksbill. Where did you?
Yes, this one.
Where did you say that they nest?
So the hawksbill turtle is our most commonly seen turtle. They nest in the largest numbers, and they nest primarily on our west and our south coast. So the nesting beaches of the hawksbill overlap almost perfectly with our primary tourism beaches. So the same Platinum Coast where tourists are going, that's where the hawksbills are nesting, and the same South Coast beaches as well. That's where you'll find them.
Wow. You know, I have a friend who's a hawksbill who has prevented me now from going out by swimming by the boats because, yeah, a little too friendly. Okay, so when you talk about the Platinum Coast, though, it immediately brings to mind some of the challenges, I think. I remember when we first chatted many years ago, you drew to my attention something I never thought of, and that was simple lighting, lights on that are shining on the beaches. Can you expand on that, some of the challenges for the nesting?
Okay. There are 2 primary threats our sea turtles are facing in Barbados. One of them is pretty difficult to tackle, and that is the loss of nesting habitat. So it's a combination, of course, of development practices, sea level rise, natural erosion, and so on. But regardless of the root causes, the result is disappearing and narrowing beaches on the west coast. So that's one major problem. And then the second one is the impact of light on our coastline. Our beaches are overwhelmed with light. There are lights from the street, there are lights from hotels, private homes, villas, restaurants, etc. Now, how does light impact turtles? It impacts them at both the nesting stage, when those females are on the beach trying to find areas to lay their eggs, and it also impacts them as hatchlings when they're emerging from the sand. So I'll deal with the kind of lesser known one first, and that is those nesting females. So there was a study that we did a few years ago, and we looked at the impact on lighting on female nest choice. So we looked at a stretch of beach, we looked at the lighting every 20 meters along that beach, and then we looked at how many sea turtle activities we had in those sections. So how many turtles were trying to come up to nest. And what it showed is that there's a significant correlation between the amount of light and the number of turtles that attempt to nest on those areas. And this is a continuous stretch of beach, so there's no real physical differences between the locations. The primary difference would be the lighting. So it showed that in areas that were very brightly lit, in front of hotels, nesting plummeted. In some cases, it was a tiny fraction, less than 1/10 of the nesting that you might get on an adjacent beach. So you would have maybe a highly vegetated dark area, and you would get loads of turtles trying to nest. And then the hotel right next door might get maybe 10 to 20. So you have nearly 200 a few meters away, and then you have, you know, a dozen or so just next door. And one of the things that is really important about lighting in this way is it's a deterrent. And what that means is that on beaches which are, you know, in good condition and are good quality, you may not have them being utilized as much as they could be, because the lighting that is implemented at that location is deterring the turtles from coming up to nest. Now, I'm not saying that turtles will only nest on really dark beaches. Everybody would call me a liar because they see turtles in front of their hotels and they see them in different places. So what I'm saying is that the numbers are definitely impacted. Darker and lighter are the terms that I'm using. So I'm not talking about the complete absence of light. Yes. There's one South Coast location where the property has quite a bit of light, but they've left their beachfront vegetation intact. So you can find the sea grape trees, you can see the almond trees. So that helps to screen the light that is spilling onto the beach. And we get tons of nesting there. The current, I'm not an architect, as you might be aware, but the current model for hotel construction seems to be this wide open model where there's little to no vegetation at all on the beachfront or in front of the property. The property is exactly at beach level, so you go straight from sand and you go straight onto pavement or onto a hotel deck or onto the swimming pool. And what that means is that there's no buffer at all. So any light that spills out of the restaurant, the hotel, the rooms, whatever, comes directly onto the beachfront, and there's nothing to screen or to reduce that lighting for turtles. Another impact of light for nesting turtles is disorientation. Sometimes they come up, they nest, and after they finish nesting, they need to return to the sea. The light on the beach can confuse them, so instead of going back to the sea, they actually head inland towards properties. And we've had cases already this nesting season, although it's only been about 2 or so weeks. We've had cases already where turtles have strayed away from the road. They're pulled inland by the lights, attempting to get back to the sea. And so that's kind of the first part of it.
You've lost one already, I think, due to that. I think I saw you on Facebook with the loss of one who I think may have wandered and got disoriented and fell off a ledge or something.
That one, well, I think that one was a combination. So this was a West Coast beach where there was little sand. So in this case, the water is coming right up to the property. The turtle came up to try to nest, but she's not going to lay her eggs in wet sand. You know, these turtles are good mothers. They're trying to find the very best. We're not accepting like mediocre beaches. They want the very best spot that is going to give their eggs the best possible chance to successfully incubate and to develop. So she comes up on this wet beach. It's not suitable, so immediately she wants to go further. She's like, okay, well, I'm not high enough. I need to go further inland, higher up onto the beach. So she continues crawling. There was a bit of a gap, and the property was missing. There was no hedge in some places. So it was quite open, and she went straight into the backyard. You could see where she tried to dig her egg chamber, but it was quite muddy. So she was unable to dig. So she must have spent a significant time wandering around in that backyard trying to find somewhere to nest. She then wandered around to the front of the property. Now, immediately adjacent or across the road was a street light. It was one of those, I think it was possibly one of the LED street lights, so it was quite bright. And I can't say for certain whether that street light pulled her, caused her to go in the direction of the road, but whatever the motivation was, she crawled down the driveway of the property and went into the street. She actually was almost across the street. She was on the opposite side when a vehicle came down and struck her. The vehicle, according to an eyewitness, almost turned over when it hit the turtle. She was not a small turtle. She was over 3 feet long, and that's just the length of the shell. I would guess she was probably over 150 pounds. So a large turtle. I weigh 120 pounds, and I am 5 feet. So, she was definitely much heavier than me. And maybe just a little bit smaller, but it could easily have been me in the road, or a child in the road, or an elderly person that tripped and fell. So anyway, this turtle was struck. Where you're seeing her at the side of the road in this picture is not where she died, and this is really the heartbreaking part, because I got this call after 5 in the morning on our 24-hour hotline. And the person said, the turtle was in the road. So, of course, my first question is she alive? Is she okay? They said she's been hit by a vehicle. So I put down the phone quickly, threw on clothes, and I'm running to go through the door to get outside. When the phone rings again and the person's calling back. And now I can hear in their voice that they're distraught. Come as quickly as you can. She's suffering. So I fly and I go up the road. I remember I'm looking because I'm expecting this turtle to be dead in the middle of the road. I don't see it in the middle of the road, but then I saw these people at the side. So I slam on the brakes, park the car. I come over, jump out, come over. There's this turtle. She's lying, flippers down, head down. The back of the shell was completely massacred. It looks like if you like if you had a hard-boiled egg and you dropped it on a tile floor, how the shell cracks, that is exactly how it was. So I get there, she's down, so I immediately go to check to see if she's tagged, to see if we could, if we knew who she was. There was a history. I touched the back of her neck, and she moved. And that was when I lost it. I bawled. When people talk about holding your head, I did not know what to do with myself. I did not know up from down. This turtle, half of this turtle is crushed, and she has her flippers up and she's flapping and she's sticking her head up to breathe, and I could only imagine how much trauma and how much pain she was in. And at that point there was nothing I could do to put her out of the situation. I immediately called the vet. I explained what was going on. This is the amazing Dr. Gus Reeder, who's been working with the Turtle Project for, I guess at this point, decades. And he immediately jumped into the car to head down to put her down, to try to put her out of her misery. But I sat there for about 30 traumatic minutes with this turtle that was still alive. And it was a horrifying event. Yeah. In addition to that, I mentioned she was on the side of the road. She was killed closer to the middle of the road, and she dragged herself. So when I spoke to the 2 cyclists who had called the hotline, and I said, I'm surprised this person hit her because she's right on the edge of the road. It would have been so easy to avoid. She was literally just, inches into the road. And they said, no, that's not where she was. And they pointed out the blood in the road and said, that is where she was hit. And when they got there, she was dragging herself out of the road onto the side. So where that photo was taken is as far as she was able to get. Essentially. Okay, so we took the eggs. I wasn't going to do it first, but we got 180 eggs that she wasn't able to lay, and they're currently buried on a beach in Fitz Village. And we are hoping, we're really praying at this point that some of those eggs will still be viable and some of them will make it, and her genes will go on, or at least have a chance to go on.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back. Carla Daniel, Field Director of the Barbados Sea Turtle Project, is joining us today on Face It and Fix It. And you hear the stories, but you know, this is the reality of it. And your Barbados Sea Turtle Project, Carla, is certainly doing amazing work. You mentioned that you have day patrols, you have a 24-hour hotline. Can you tell us a bit about the Sea Turtle Project, you know, for those who might now be tuning in and who might not know about its existence and just what it does?
The Barbados Sea Turtle Project is a research and conservation organization based at the University of the West Indies. It was started in the late 1980s and it was formalized in the early 1990s. Back then, turtles had a lot of problems. We were eating them. It was legal. We had an open season in Barbados and there was legal harvest at that time. So one of the first things the project did was to lobby for the end of this open harvest. And in 1998, the government of Barbados saw fit to pass a moratorium on turtle harvest. Since then, it has been full steam ahead. We do research, and that is because we need to know what is going on. We need to know whether our conservation actions are having the desired impact, which is a positive one. We need to know what threats are facing our turtles and how best we can solve them. So there's quite a lot of research. And then there's also, of course, our monitoring. So during the nesting season, we have an amazing group of volunteers. And I just want to say at this point that you have to give kudos to these guys. Volunteers with the Sea Turtle Project are not like regular volunteers. You are not signing up for an hour to go and check on a beach. These guys are putting in 8 hours of full day of work. It is hard work. You're walking. If you're on day patrol, there's a day patrol team. They're out from 7:30 in the morning to 4 p.m. So there's a team on the beach right now. And they're walking and checking different beaches for the entire day for that 8-hour period. They're also responding to calls. And then we have our night patrol teams. They are out from 7:30 p.m. to 4 a.m. So they're out the entire night. So while you're in your bed sleeping and dreaming, they're out there protecting turtles. They are collecting data, they're tagging, they're measuring, they're relocating nests that are laid in difficult areas or areas where they're not likely to be successful. We'll move them to a better spot. Up to last night, our team that was on the index beach last night discovered a turtle wedged down and trapped between some boulders. Wow. Had they not been there, she would not have been encountered perhaps until the morning if somebody jogging on the beach or somebody saw her. But there's a chance she would not have been seen at all. Earlier, about a week ago, in the very first week of patrol, our South Patrol team just happened to go out by a hotel to check to see if there was any nesting activity. And when they got on the beach, there was a turtle, an adult turtle, on her back in the surf. So the water was coming over her and she was flapping around. She could not turn herself over. It was really rough. And we think because of the steepness of the beach, she just kind of got hit at the wrong angle and she got flipped over. So had they not just gone onto the beach at the right time, the right second, the right location, she would have died. But they were able instead to turn her over very gently and to make sure that she was able to get back to the sea. So we have an amazing group. We have about 26 volunteers at the moment. And then we have another group who are starting with us come August, because the season we go right through down to the end of November. You also mentioned our 24-hour hotline. We have this 24-hour hotline that we respond to at any time. So if you call, this was a call we got, I think maybe last week. And this was a turtle that came up to nest and fell down in this drain. I've never been so grateful in my life, because there's this grassy patch of sand where I'm standing with all of the grass growing, and that is what she landed on. Had she landed on her back in that water, she would have drowned. We've had turtles fall into drains before, and there's a lot of sand in this one. And there's cement under that sand. So when they fall in and they hit the cement, because they're kind of front heavy, so their shoulders are quite big and heavy, they go in head first. So there's they may break their necks, crack their skulls. So when I got that call for this turtle in the drain, my heart fell, because last season we got almost to the end and we had not lost a single turtle, and I was so overjoyed. And just at the end of the season in November, we had a turtle struck in the road last year as well. So I'm like, all right, 2022 is coming, be ready, we got this thing covered. We lost one last year, but that's, things happen. It's okay. This year, we are not losing any. It's going to be an amazing year. We're going to protect our turtles. We're not losing any. And then that call for the turtle that was killed in the road came the day before the season started.
Wow.
So that was, I cannot describe how much of a blow that was. But, we shook ourselves off. As Barbadians, we can do better. As Barbadians, we can do a whole lot better.
Yep.
But, the way to do better is to recognize where our shortcomings are, recognize where there's need for behavior change, and just to do it. It's not to stick on, spilled milk, the things that have happened. Yes, the turtle was run over. Yes, the person that didn't stop was ridiculous for not stopping, or at least calling the police or saying something. But what we can all do is learn from that and just be a bit more careful when we're driving on the coast road, because that turtle could have been a pothole, that turtle could have been a man, that turtle could have been a child on a bicycle, that really could have been anything. So, we just need to learn the lessons when these things happen and make changes going forward.
You mentioned conservation measures. What sort of conservation measures have you all put in place or are putting in place?
Oh, that's a bit okay. So let's talk about the threats. We mentioned lighting before. So basically, our conservation actions are in an effort to reduce these threats, or the impact of these threats, and to mitigate them. So there's quite a bit of, I guess you could say, lobbying involved and public awareness. So one of the strongest conservation tools that I consider that we have is to make people aware. So things like your amazing show, thank you again, Peter, for having us. To notify the public because of issues. Social media, of course, is one. Notifying, we produce papers and documents. So we have workshops. We go into business places and speak to them. We do free lighting consultations. So, if you want us to come and assess your lights and let you know how sea turtle friendly they are. And one myth that I would like to just dispel right now is that the Barbados Sea Turtle Project does not want to make your beach pitch black and unsafe, where you have to fear for your life, or where every time you step out, you're in danger of tripping and breaking your neck or cracking a rib. That is not the case at all. Sea turtle friendly lighting speaks to the installation of the light, the use of the light, using appropriate wattage. It also speaks to the wavelength of the light, which for our human eyes is talking about color. So sea turtles don't see long wavelengths of light very well, and those are lights within the kind of amber to red range. So you can make adjustments to your lighting. You can have beautiful lighting, an amazing ambiance, and still, make your property friendly for turtles. It's gorgeous. People appreciate it. The aesthetics are lovely, and it is good for turtles. That really harsh white lighting that people put up is, it's just difficult in general. So, that is Shanae with a million hatchlings. Hatchling season is going to be coming up soon. Peter, if you want us to come back and talk about hatchling problems,
please.
That's a whole other session.
Yes,
altogether. But this red light is the red light that's shown here is in the sea turtles friendly spectrum. But you also have the kind of fire colored lighting as well. So more of an orange, amber. There are people on islands who specialize in sea turtle friendly lighting, and they can get you. These special bulbs don't cost an arm and a leg, so it's not saying, like a regular light is $3 and you want me to buy a $300 turtle friendly light. The cost is comparable. Something else that's really important as well is your use of the light. So, turning off your light at a certain time if it's not in use is a good one. Using a 5-watt bulb if you need to illuminate this area, as opposed to a 100-watt bulb, which illuminates 50 meters down the beach on either side. That's critical too. But then we just have this really callous disregard, I think, in some instances where we are, I don't want to say self-centered, but we often only think about ourselves. Now, sea turtles are not the only animals that are impacted by light. And I will tell you, I was driving down uh, in St. John, you know, those roads, those really
Oh
bumpy
my
roller
goodness.
coaster roads that the Prime Minister is talking about fixing. I'm just going to say point blank, I know people in St. John can cuss me and St. Joseph, but I love those roads. We talked about our culture and our heritage. I feel like those bumpy, windy St. John roads are a part of my culture and my heritage. I don't feel like I'm on the East Coast until the car's shaking and I'm going up and down. You know, we don't have there are no parks in Barbados. We don't have a Disney World or Coney Island.
That's
So
your
when I
thrill
go
a
on those
minute.
roads, you know, exactly, I get my low ride. So we're driving down this road. It's dark. It's like after 9 p.m. It's the road on the way to Bath Beach, and I passed this pasture. And it's this big, dark pasture. There's like some cows and some jamun trees. So I was like, oh, I wonder if these jamun trees have on any jamuns. Completely random because it's like, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. So I drive across this field with my flashlight, shining on these jamun trees, trying to see if there are any ripe jamuns that I can pick and eat in the middle of the night. So I get to the end of the field, I turn around, and that's when I start to see these little twinkling lights. And I'm like, what what are those? Those are fireflies. So it's really dark. I turn off the headlights of the car, and then I see thousands, Peter, thousands of
I
fireflies
haven't seen
on
them
the
for a
surface of the
while.
grass, in the trees. And I sat there in the dark with my friend for over half an hour just watching these fireflies.
Haven't
So
seen
I
them
went
for
back
a
because I don't know
while.
much about them. So I went and I Googled and I'm like, where have all the fireflies gone? What is going on? What I did not know was that fireflies need to find each other to mate. Males and females need to match up, and then they do the little deed and they lay their eggs, and you get baby fireflies. Those light flashes that we're talking about, those are how they find a mate.
Oh
So when
no.
outside is really bright, like we have our fancy street lights and all of our security lighting, and we've just lit up our planet. So when outside is really bright, and a little tiny firefly with his little butt there, and he like flash, 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 you can't see because he is nothing compared to the light bulbs.
Who
So they're
knew?
not able to find their mates. And that is one of the reasons why the population is declining. So they
Yes.
need they need some dark areas. We need some areas without lighting, where a lot of these animals are able to survive. So there are a lot of things that are kind of maybe not as big as sea turtles and not as obvious, but they desperately need light. Well, light has, an impact on their life cycle, on their ability to find food, on their ability to find a mate,
Wow.
on all of these things as well. So we are, I say all the time, we're sharing this planet, we're sharing this island. And of course, we have our concerns as people. We have issues that we need to tackle, but
Okay.
we do need to
I'll
find
tell
a
you
little
what,
bit
Carla.
of,
Let's take a look at
yes.
those issues that we have to tackle after this break. Okay?
Okay, no
We'll be
problem.
back. We'll be back. We have the field director with the Barbados Sea Turtle Project with us, Carla Daniel. And we're looking at the challenges that they're facing, and not only them, by extension, the sea turtles in Barbados. So, educate us, Carla. What are some of the challenges? We were talking about your conservation measures, but what are the challenges there?
So there's a bit of a laundry list of problems, you could say. So you have the different life stages of sea turtles. So if I could, I'll start from the beginning and kind of just give you a quick rundown of what some of those issues are. So we have these nesting turtles that are coming up onto our beaches to lay their eggs. And in the first instance, you have a situation where they are you have in the first instance a situation where they are not able to find places to nest. And because they are so very determined, they're getting off the beach. So they're going into the road, they're going into construction sites, private properties, swimming pools, ponds, drains, ditches. They're just, getting into all kinds of trouble. So that is one of the biggest threats, access to nesting space. So one element of that is the fact that beaches are not what they used to be. But another element, of course, is that we also need to make the beaches that are remaining accessible to turtles. So beach chairs and beach furniture that are left out. So I'm not, singling out chairs alone, because we have restaurant furniture now, tables and chairs as well, that are placed on our beaches at night, and they're left out for the entire night. So they're for the duration.
You had a problem with a turtle as well, didn't you? This
particular turtle. This is a turtle that is trapped under a beach chair, and this was last week. So the season is only 2 weeks in, and we've already had so many issues. So this was staff from the property in the blue shirt, and this was one of their guests in the shorts. And she was stuck under those beach chairs, we believe, for quite a bit, but they were able to free her and to get her out. These were metal chairs, and they were partially kind of chained together. There's a good chance that had they not been, she would have dragged that beach chair with her back to the sea, and she would have drowned. So not only do these chairs kind of preclude turtles from using the space that's remaining, but they're also a hazard for them. They get tangled up in these chairs and other furnishings and dragged into the sea. There are places, and it's not just chairs and furnishings as well, there are places I go to the beach and I see a property and you have a lovely wall and you have cut all of your hedge trimmings, all your coconut tree branches. The coconut trees are not on the beach, they're at you in your garden, but you've taken all your coconut tree branches, your hedge trimmings, everything, and made a massive heap and piled it up on the beach. I had a nest a week before last week, and the hatchlings are trying to struggle to get out through debris. People then come by and they burn it and they cook any eggs that are underneath. But that space that is there, that is covered, is not accessible to turtles either. So piling up debris, piling up garbage, piling up your old crap. I mean, there's a beach where people have car seats out of a vehicle and they're just propped up on the beach, and they have old broken chairs and old this and old that. And it's almost like a dump, just in the same way in some instances that our gullies are being treated with all the refuse being dumped. There are some of our beach spaces that people are treating just as badly. So it is the commercial activities with the beach chairs and the restaurant furniture. It is the private activities with the garbage and the hedge trimmings and so on. And then it is the dumping and the bringing of collections of old stuff that people are just putting down. So all of those are causing problems for our nesting females as well. Then there's harassment. Harassment is another problem. People see turtles and they get so excited and they immediately go, and the first thing they want to do is capture their experience. So they're not really thinking from the turtle's perspective, I am out of the sea, I'm big, I'm heavy, I'm vulnerable, my cloaca hurts and I need to get these eggs out. They're not thinking from that perspective. They're thinking, oh my God, this is so amazing. I want to capture a memory and I want to share it with others. So they take their phones out and they start to take pictures of flash, or they start to videotape with light, or they turn on their phone light and shine it so they can see better. They go right up to the turtle and, try to touch it and stand in front of its face. And the turtle freaks out. She is immediately alarmed and she may abandon and go back into the sea. Why is this a problem? This turtle is fasting because turtles have, try to word this right. Turtles have one hole at the back end. So like birds,
Oh.
like if you go into the supermarket and you see chicken eggs, sometimes, I hope I can say this, sometimes they look a little shitty. And that's because the hole that the chicken eggs are coming out of
Uh-huh.
is the hole that the other stuff is coming out of as well. So turtles are kind of similar. So they have this cloaca, which is like this tube that the eggs come down, and connected to it are the oviducts, but the intestines are also connected. So
Okay.
to ensure that there's no overlap, when our nesting females leave their foraging ground, they stop eating. So as they swim the thousands of miles back to Barbados, they're not eating. They're using their fat reserves. When they come to the island and they're mating, and oh gosh, Peter, if I had to tell you about turtles mating, that is a story all on its own. Let's just say it's a little rough. So
Wow.
when they go through the mating and all of that, and then they now have to come out of the sea, they have to make the eggs, of course, and those resources are coming from those fat reserves and everything
Yes.
again. They have to use energy to get onto the land because they're not as graceful, they're not as buoyant and light. No, they're heavy and they're dragging themselves. So it's a lot of work. They have to come onto the land to nest. So all of these resources that they're using are from their fat reserves. For the entirety of their nesting season, they do not eat for sustenance. So when they're on the beach and people are always telling me, oh, she looks so tired. She's tired, yes,
But
but
she's
she
also
can't go eat
hungry.
food to build back up calories. So she's going to spend the whole season not eating. Then she still has to swim, leave Barbados and swim all the way back through the Caribbean to where her foraging ground is. And that is when she will start to eat. So because
But
it takes such a massive physical toll, they don't nest every year. They're only physically capable of nesting every other year to every 2 years. So when you scare a
oh.
turtle back into the sea and she has to give up, all of that is wasted energy, wasted resources that she simply cannot get back. So on the surface, it just looks like, oh, somebody said, oh, well, she can come back later tonight, or she can come back in further down the beach. But, that's just the kind of superficial impact. There's a much deeper impact and a
Wow.
physiological impact that is happening. And that can
Okay.
result in her laying fewer eggs or poor quality eggs.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, when we come back, you have brought up something now. I'm thinking, so what does this mean then when we're swimming and feeding the turtles? We'll ask Carla when we come back. Wow. We're chatting with Field Director of the Barbados Sea Turtle Project, Carla Daniel, and we're certainly getting a lesson. We're learning quite a bit, and I certainly hope that you all are taking note. You know, in the beginning when I said that if you have a faith, you've been told that you are, you know, guardians of this planet and the animals that live within it. And one of our dear creatures is the sea turtle. And what kind of guardian are you? And I'm hoping that from this that you become a better guardian, or even if guardianship is not your want, but you become a better caregiver and observer and partner on this planet that we all share. So Carla, we have an attraction where we swim with the turtles, and some of the boats actually feed them. What are your thoughts on this aspect?
I have a lot of thoughts.
I'm sure.
So what I will say is that anytime we are interacting with a wild animal, we will have an impact. That impact may be on their behavior, it may be on their food items, it may be on their health, but we will definitely have an impact. That being said, there are some benefits there have been some benefits, I would say. One of them is that people have been able to experience sea turtles in a different way. So they've been able to see them a bit more closely. They've been able to see how amazing they are up close. I hope that through the interaction, they may get a greater appreciation and understanding for sea turtles. It's also helped our economy. And it's not just, you know, the big businesses that have multiple catamarans and are doing the cruise ship trade and so on. It's also a lot of small boats that are involved as well, and small people that are taking advantage of the opportunity. It has also impacted our tourism products. I don't know of any tourist that has traveled to Barbados that has not at some point done a catamaran cruise and gone to see turtles. I've seen people describe it as life-changing. I've seen people describe the experience as one that they'll never forget and say things like it made their holidays and so on. So those impacts are undeniable. This practice began organically because turtles can be greedy. And sometimes, I mean, I get quite upset by it because I'm like, if y'all were not going after this food like this, we would not be in this situation. But if they are offered something and it's easy to get, they will go for it. Now, to dispel another rumor, turtles do not eat fish. Now, this is going to sound really stupid. Give me a second. I know you've seen people provision them and offer them fish, and they have eaten it. In the same way that children will eat rocks, which does not mean that children eat rocks, or in the same way that if you have corn kernels and you give a bird a corn kernel and it takes it and eats it, that does not mean that corn kernels are a natural part of a bird's diet.
Right.
It means that there's easy food and they're going to take advantage of that easy food that is on offer. So at one point in their life cycle, they're kind of omnivorous. So when they're smaller, they eat a lot of different things. They eat what they're able to access. As they get bigger, which is about kind of this size, they come in close to land again. Because when they're little baby turtles, they're out in the open ocean, away from predators. They're finding refuge in sargassum, and they're living and feeding. And this for about 5 years. They're out there in the open ocean, and then when they get to a certain size, some turtles, like our hawksbills and our greens, they come back in close to shore. This is a pretty delicate time for them because it's around this time that their diet starts to specialize. Sea turtles eat green algae, they may eat the occasional jellyfish, and they eat seagrass. Hawksbill turtles will eat sponge. But during this transitionary period,
and she's not talking about the cake, by the way. Right.
No, not sponge cake. Sponge, the animal growing on the reef, it's in competition for coral. And by keeping the sponge numbers down, turtles are helping coral to compete, and it helps to keep our coral reefs healthy. So turtles are doing an amazing job keeping those solid rock reef barriers in place that help to break the force of those extreme weather events that we're talking about, and also keeping the reefs healthy, which keep our reef fish happy, and those reef fish, like parrotfish, poop out that white sand that we adore so much. And that is also a major player in our tourism products as well, and just our culture, you know, our beach cricket and our lounging and our picnicking and excursions and our seaside almond eating and sweet grape eating, and all of that is, you know, tied up in that sand as well. But I'm not getting distracted. So back on to what we were talking about.
The hawksbill.
Which was
eating sponge.
Yes. So it eats. So they primarily will eat sponge. So when they get this easily accessible food, I mean, you're bringing the food literally to them. Of course, they're gonna take it because it's free. They didn't have to work for it, and it's plentiful. Maybe too plentiful in some cases. What are the impacts of this? We did bring some veterinarians down 1 year, and we looked at the health of those turtles, and some of them are obese. They're fat because you can imagine if you're a turtle and you eat lettuce and all of a sudden you're now eating like Farmer's Choice ham, you are going to, it's a lot more protein. It is richer in fats and oils and so on. So they grow a bit faster. They're big, like some of them look like butterballs. They have a lot of body fat as well. So, you know, the human equivalent would be like, they have like NCDs, they got like high cholesterol and all of these issues that you get when that you can associate with overeating or with being a bit heavier than you are supposed to be. There's also behavioral changes. These sea turtles typically feed on the ocean floor. So they'll come up to take a breath, and then they'll go down and they'll spend their time feeding on the ground. Now, they're, instead of feeding at the bottom and breathing at the top, they're also being fed at the top. So when they're being provisioned, the food is offered to them at the surface. This means that they spend a significantly greater period of time at the surface. This makes them vulnerable because at the surface we also have boats. We have jet skis. We have all of these other things. So we get boat strikes. And I also had a turtle killed by a boat strike earlier this year as well. So these boat strikes can be, and often are, fatal. So because they're spending more time at the surface, they're more vulnerable to that. People touch the turtles. You see these fingers? These are like deadly weapons. And I'm not talking like when you're choking the life out of somebody. I'm talking about just even when you're just touching and stroking and being all Elvira-y, they're an issue because on your hand, you may have sunscreen, you may have insect repellent, and you certainly have bacteria.
Wow.
So these turtles that are coming up to people multiple times a day and just being touched over and over and over and over and over again, they actually have slightly different bacteria on the surface of their shells compared to the wild turtles that are not interacting with people in those ways. And then, of course, you know, I've had complaints. I've had tourists tell me about people feeding turtles bread. You know, macaroni pie that's left over, putting it in the water, cookies, and all of this crap that, you know, they definitely should not be eating. So what I will say is that there have been benefits. There are some negatives, as with anything. There are negatives and there are positives. What we really need is some regulation. Regulation that allows us to keep the turtles safe, but also to allow persons to have this interaction that an entire industry has been built around.
How can we help? How can people who are listening and watching us now, how can we help?
In terms of the swim with the turtles, if you go out on a catamaran, do not touch the turtles. Do not chase the turtles. Is really important. If you see your catamaran guide fishing off the boat, tell him to stop, because these turtles take hooks as well. That's another big problem that we have with people. We get turtle. I had a turtle last year that was seen off Welch's Beach just before Oystons, and it was a nesting female, and she had fishing line wrapped around her front flipper. And what happens is that that line wraps around, but over time it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And this front flipper, she was not able to use it. It was kind of dangling, and it was huge. It was swelled up to about 3-4 times the size of her other flipper. And we tried to find her. We could not find her. We saw her a couple months later, and the flipper was gone.
Oh my goodness.
The line had cut off the circulation. It had cut right through the bone. She had a piece of bone sticking out right here, but the flipper had fallen off. And a turtle with one front flipper, the front flippers are used to propel them through the water. The back flippers are used to steer, and for females, it's also used to dig the egg chamber and so on.
Wow.
So a turtle with one front flipper is like, you know, with me losing one of my legs. It makes it very, very difficult for me to survive without aids. Now, I may be able to get a prosthetic or a wheelchair or crutches or something to help me to adapt. A turtle does not have that luxury.
Right.
So once she loses that front flipper, she is severely handicapped in the water. So things like fishing line. All right, so to combat, what can we do as people? We can be more considerate. Persons who are working with sea turtles and who make their livelihoods from these sea turtle interactions can monitor the behavior of their guests a bit more. Be stern. You know, don't be frightened to tell people that what they're doing is wrong. These are our turtles. This is your livelihood.
Exactly.
And, you know, we are strict guardians of our fate. So we need to take up that guardianship and to do the things that are necessary. So we need to control those interactions between people and turtles. Persons who are using watercraft near into shore need to also be considerate of where they're driving, the speeds that they're moving at, not just because of turtles, but because of our swimmers and our snorkelers as well, the speeds that they're going at. We need to, if we see something, say something. So if we see somebody interacting with a turtle inappropriately, call our 24-hour hotline, 230-0142. We always answer. If not, we call you back. But call the hotline and report it and let us know.
Thank you so much, Carla. I let you have the last word today. That was an amazing lesson. I certainly hope that, you know, our viewers take heed and take heart. Some touching stories you shared, but this is the reality. And it's the Barbados in which we live, and they're Barbadians too, our Barbados sea turtle. Thank you for all you do, and we will keep in touch. Thank you for joining us today on Face It and Fix It. Stay safe and stay well.